Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of 2 Cents Plus, your gaming and anime HQ. I do apologize for my absence, but a very close friend of mine passed away unexpectedly and it hit me a bit harder than I thought. But I'm here, I'm back, so let's get these videos rolling. Today we will be covering my top 10 favorite monsters from Monster Hunter. So let's get into it. Now before we get started, I want to let you guys know that this top 10 list is my personal opinion and it is not solely based on how cool the monsters are, but more so how much of an impact they had on me. There are plenty of other monsters that could have made it on this list, but they just didn't have the same impact as these guys did. So without further ado, let's get started. The very first monster on this list is going to be the Alolan. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. This Elder Dragon has been around for quite some time and was one of the first Elder Dragons that I ever remember fighting. At the time I was really into using the bow, meaning essentially it was the only thing that I used, and I was beginning to get very good with it. Now this was a monster that broke me out of my bow streak. You see, this dragon is a manipulator of wind, fighting with a heavy gust of wind surrounding him. And it turns out that this extremely heavy wind also blocks arrows. Now I didn't think I would ever feel so helpless playing Monster Hunter, but back then I had no idea what I was gonna do. Of course I found out later through battle that he can be knocked out of this state, and you can also cancel it out with poison, but that was the first time in a Monster Hunter game I've seen a specific monster impact the type of weapon that you use. Even melee players were negatively affected by the wind. They were constantly getting blown away trying to get in close for an attack. He was literally not a force to be reckoned with, which is why he made it on this list. The next awesome monster on this list is the Teostra. Not only does this guy look absolutely amazing, but it took me a very long time before I could actually defeat him. I think I spent literally 4 days trying to kill him with no success, and it was brutal. The flame aura that he kept around his body coupled with the extreme temperature of the volcano alone drove me crazy back then. His attacks were so powerful and he just seemed to be one of those monsters that didn't stop attacking until you were dead. Also in Monster Hunter 4U they introduced his Supernova attack, which was pretty much a one-hit KO no matter what type of armor you had, and the first time I ever seen it, it completely blew my mind. I had no idea what to do. I was stuck. I just sat my 3DS down and walked away, which is why this awesome monster has made it on this list. The next monster up on my list is a rather unusual one, and it's probably not found on a lot of top 10 lists, and that next monster is the Goghoul. I fell in love with this prickly bastard the first time I ever fought him. Despite that fact, I feel like I would be being dishonest if I didn't mention the irritating games of hide and seek I had to play with this guy. Most of that I can attribute to being an idiot and not realizing the signs, but once I figured out exactly what he was about and what he looks like when he's hiding underground, everything changed. And the love really started to blossom when I found out that you can carve his little lure as many times as you want essentially, as long as you knew what you were doing. After that fact came to light, grinding him to get his armor set became a joy. It literally became something that I loved to do. Both his Gunner and his Blade Master set I got in record time, and oddly enough they became my favorite set, which is probably an unpopular opinion because it's not really all that great, but speed eating is probably one of the best skills in Monster Hunter in my opinion. Plus the critical damage definitely helped. Being able to almost eliminate that stupid animation in between drinking potions was essentially all I really needed to stay alive. And with pretty much that alone, the Goghoul set became my go-to and pretty much the set I used throughout almost the entire game. And that's why the Goghoul made it on this list. The next one on this list, you might also not find it on very many top 10 lists, and that is the Eggnog Tar. That awesome intro of him drilling through the ground, and then up into the ceiling, and then back through the ground again was pretty amazing. And this is a very unique trait for Monster Hunter at the time, and the freaking beam he had was amazing. I also appreciated the fact that if you wanted a claw from him, you literally had to crumble the hardened lava on his claw in order to obtain them, or you almost literally never got one. It was one of the few times in Monster Hunter where I had to actively work for a specific item that I wanted that wasn't a tail. Now don't get me wrong, there could have been other monsters that had me do this too, but they were not as impactful as this one. Not to mention the fact that the Ice Eggnog Tar was equally as amazing, but his armor set made you a gun lancing god. And at the time, I was really into the gun lance. So when you factor in its unique ability and nature, and the attention that the developers took in order to make this guy fun to fight, that's definitely a reason for him to make it on this list. The monster that's going to be next up on this list is the Camellias. Now if you think that my game of hide and seek with the Goghoul was bad, there were times where I rage quit and even failed the quest because I couldn't find this douchebag. I actually vividly remember the first time I fought him and how furious I was when he went invisible and I couldn't find him. Sometimes I would get lucky and bump into him and just start flailing my weapon everywhere hoping that I hit him, and for the most part I had the hardest time finding him, just in general. The fact that his attacks could also steal your items made me beyond frustrated playing this game, and it made you think really hard about what you were willing to take with you based on what you were willing to lose, because it was random what he took out of your inventory, so you had to strategize. And you had to learn his behavioral patterns in nature to figure out what he was going to do next or where he was going to go next. Which in the end made fighting him a really awesome experience altogether. And it ultimately made me better at the game. But can we also talk about how unbelievably difficult his tail was to cut off? That was pretty ridiculous. But regardless, the Camellias is awesome, and that's why he made it on this list. The next monster on this top 10 list is going to be the Sidious, or the Sidious, depending on how you pronounce it. Everybody pronounce it differently. And this gigantic serpent-like creature was definitely a pain in the butt to fight. Not only was traveling to the arena long and drawn out, but he had a lot of health, and swimming around in the water wasn't exactly the most functional thing in Monster Hunter. But I would be lying if I said that the first time I ever fought this thing I wasn't in complete awe. I was absolutely floored at how huge he was. He looked really cool, and this fight still remains one of the most unique experiences that I can remember in my entire experience with the game, even if the fight in the long run ended up being a bit tedious. Now, whether you find this fight epically annoying or epically amazing, the word epic is going to be found in there somewhere, so that's why he made it on this list. The next monster up is probably going to be another really odd one that most people wouldn't expect to see on a top 10 list, but that is the Pecho. Not only was his ecology video really funny, but just everything about this goofy ass bird is hilarious. The fact that he can pretty much mimic any monster's roar and use it to his advantage makes him essentially the troll of Monster Hunter. And oh my god, have I been trolled by this douchebag on many occasions. But he made fights really interesting and also was kind of the reason why I had to step back away from the gun lance for a bit. Its close range tail whip attack and the blast attacks that came from the flints that he clapped together on his wings had a funny way of hitting you from behind, even though your shield was up and you were facing towards him and he was in front of you, which alone was supremely annoying. But on top of that, he didn't sit still for shit. It was very hard to get a hit off of him if you were turtling around with a lance and shield. All in all, this monster left a pretty interesting impression on me. An impression filled with love and hatred. So yeah, he deserves a spot on this list. Alright guys, we have gotten down to the last 3 monsters on the list, and I would like to take this time to ask you guys that if you're liking this video so far, go ahead and hit that like button and show your support for the channel. It really means a lot. With all of that said, we can move on to the final 3 monsters on this list. Starting off with a relatively new monster to the series that goes by the name of Nough Karkos. Now this monster freaked me out the first time I fought it. I didn't know exactly what I was fighting, and believe it or not, the first time I fought him, I never even got to see its bottom half. But at the end of the fight during his death animation, I caught a glimpse of him, and it shocked me, so I had to fight him again. During my second battle with him, he did come up and I did get to see his bottom half, and afterwards I had so many questions. Like, what the hell is this thing, and how does it make the skulls and the bones on his tentacles move like sentient creatures? And who the hell showed him how to do such a badass thing? What the hell is bone blight, and why does the blue shit that he spits all over you turn you into fucking bones? So many questions met with so few answers, but if I had to pick any number of reasons, or at least the specific reason that this monster made it on this list, it is because of his death animation, which is probably the most epic thing I've ever seen in a Monster Hunter game. That final desperate beam that he shoots out right before his death as he loses control, hits the ceiling of the cave that we were in and completely destroys it, revealing a ray of sunlight that comes down in the battle arena to signify our glorious victory, was simply amazing. And I just can't think of any other moment in Monster Hunter that made me feel more triumphant than that. The next monster on this list made it to the list almost exclusively because of their uniqueness in the Monster Hunter world. And that monster is Mizutsune. Not only is this monster absolutely gorgeous and a joy to fight, as far as I know it's the only monster on Monster Hunter that attacks you with bubbles, with the exception of the Hermitar, which has a interesting bubble beam attack. To be honest, I don't really have anything profound or amazing to say about Mizutsune. She just looks awesome, her weapons and armor are awesome, and I want her as a miniature pet. And that's pretty much why she's on this list. So fight me. Last but not least is a monster that I believe only made 2 appearances in the Monster Hunter franchise, and that is the giant, moss-covered green hot air balloon we call Yamasukami. Now this was a fight that I looked forward to every chance I got to do it. The battle itself was just so different than anything we were used to, and the monster itself defied logic. Was he a dragon? Was he a giant balloon? Nobody knew. All we knew is he had weird human-like teeth, and that was creepy. From ducking his spin attack, or to jumping on his back to get those extra carbs, or trying your best to escape his one-hit KO attack where he literally swallows you whole and spits you out, just made this battle a joy to be a part of. His armor wasn't half bad either. I don't think the skills were that great, but it did look really awesome. I absolutely would not complain if he made another appearance in Monster Hunter World. Actually, I'm asking directly for that to happen. And there you have it, folks. This has been my top 10 favorite monsters on Monster Hunter, and I look forward to hearing what yours are down in the comment section below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you're not subscribed, make sure to click that subscribe button and the bell notification, which will let you know anytime I upload new videos on this channel. Thank you everyone once again for watching, and I will see you next time on the next episode of 2 Cents Plus, your gaming and anime HQ.